Hey, beasties. So it has been a long week. Um, I usually stay quiet and I usually don't say nothing. And then I realize that if I continue to stay quiet, I am just being a hypocrite. And I am not having those difficult conversations that I tell you guys to have and do it to open your mind and see things in different perspectives. So, you know what? Here we go. Welcome back to another episode of the Poisonous Daily, where the conversations are unfiltered, the chaos, the chaotic, empowering, and once again, the sometimes uncomfortable. People may say I'm going to be taking blows at them. People may be saying a lot of bochinche. Who knows? It comes with the territory. But this is a conversation we need to have. And as you know, I do not do this for the views, for anything. I do this to put proper information out there and make sure that everyone is having this conversation or getting their facts or questioning things or making you guys see in a different perspective. Today we're talking about something that has been weighing on me since I was probably a child because I know what it is to grow up without representation. I grew up in a time where I saw a lot of history made, especially for our people. And I'm not talking about the United States, I am talking about my Puerto Rican people. So, this conversation has been weighing on my heart very heavily. And that is the conversation about the loss of Puerto Rican culture. You know, the whitewashing of our history, the fading of the New York Rican identity, or New York Rican or Neuro Rican identity, and the difference between truly representing our people versus simply profiting off of our culture. There's a lot of people out there, especially in this day and age of social media and content creating, saying they're doing it for their people or our people, and they're probably waving a flag and this, that, and third, or they're throwing the flag onto costumes or doing things and saying it's for the culture, and genuinely, it is not. And this conversation isn't about gatekeeping. You guys know how I am, especially if you personally know me. This conversation is getting really serious. I should have had some pitoro instead of coconut water. But it's not about gatekeeping because anyone who personally knows me, and I tell you guys all the time, if you need advice, you need help, you need information, don't be afraid to ask for it. I can help in any way I can, and I will. And I'm like that in person. If a person comes up to me for help, if I can't help them, I will find a way to help them because it's all a part of being a human being and having empathy. And the lack of empathy in this world is extremely, extremely serious and it's very scary. But once again, this conversation isn't about gatekeeping. It's about um I can't say it, and I've had this told to me. I've literally had this told to me that I'm not Puerto Rican because I don't look Puerto Rican, and then it comes out of me like the little smart remark, like, "What am I supposed to look like? A bottle of adobo or arroz con gandules?" Like, bro, am I supposed to look like rice and beans because I don't look Puerto Rican or I've been told I am not Puerto Rican enough? So this is also isn't about me telling anyone they aren't Puerto Rican enough. It's about asking ourselves a very difficult question. What happens when people stop teaching their history? Think about it, beasties. Because every day it feels like we're losing pieces of who we are, not because our culture isn't strong. not because our people aren't resilient, but because somewhere along the line or along the way, too many of our stories stopped being told. The Puerto Rican identity has been disappearing for over generations. Puerto Ricans fought to preserve our language, our tradition, our customs, our heritage. But over time, things have changed, and I've seen the changes. There was a point that no one knew about Bomba y Plena. There was a point that no one spoke Spanish. There's a generation of Puerto Ricans that they chose to not speak Spanish, that they chose to assimilate and not continue their culture and heritage. Families moved away from Puerto Rican neighborhoods. Many married into different cultures and heritage, and like I stated before, some stop speaking Spanish or they could end up like me because of the area I grew up in. I speak Spanglish, you know? I may read it and write it fluently, but my Spanish is conversational or me getting pissed off and just venting out into different language. But that's what happens. Others wanted their children to assimilate, like I stated before, because they faced discrimination and hardship. And some people intentionally, as stated before, left parts of their culture behind because of painful experiences connected to their upbringing. And little by little, beasties, pieces of our identity began to fade. And today, many of our young Puerto Ricans know the music. Trust me, I've seen it this past Sunday. I've seen it over the weekend. They know the music, they know the food, they know the parade, they know the flag. And sometimes I wonder if they really do know the flag because Puerto Rico has multiple flags. And the proper flag is not the one that they think it is. The proper blue is the lighter blue. And I'm just going to put it out there. But the younger generations do not know our correct history or truly know our history. They do not know the sacrifices. They do not know the activists. They do not know the leaders. They even don't know current leaders that are of Puerto Rican descent and that represent them that are not on social media, that are actually doing the work, not putting on a show, acting like they're doing the work, or they're only Puerto Rican when they need a vote. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I had to say it. Y'all were thinking it, if you know what I'm talking about. But they also don't know the struggles that got us here. And that should really concern us. Really, BCs. That should be a big concern. Because when a community loses its history, it begins to lose its identity. And I actually wrote a paper about this when I was at NYU, and I'm actually looking for the paper. And this podcast has some of the things that I remember because I found a few of my little notes. Um, the loss of the New York Rican culture or New York, New I never say it right. I'm just used to saying New York Rican. New York Neuro Rican. But talking about the New York Rican or Neuro Rican, I sound so white saying that. Oh my god. Anyway, going back to what I said that like really saying it just made me realize that I sounded very white. Um, but back to the loss of New York Rican culture or Neuro Rican, you know, the experience wasn't about just the demographic shift. It was a movement. It was families arriving in New York, searching for opportunities while holding on tightly to their roots. We helped, Puerto Ricans helped shape New York City. My grandmother worked in those seamstress factories. My grandfather worked on the ironworks. My other grandfather worked in real estate and other things. My other grandfather was a superintendent, or no, a super, sorry. My grandmother the same. Puerto Ricans helped shape New York City. My father were many, very, very few of many Puerto Ricans that help NYPD become diversified. So trust me, I know my history, and it's shocking when you get a younger generation that thinks they know it, but they actually don't. We've helped build neighborhoods, we built businesses, we've strengthened labor movements, we've shaped politics, we fought for educational equality, we created art, and we've transformed musics. A lot of us, some of us still on the journey like myself, have become attorneys, judges, educators, entrepreneurs, activists, elected officials, and community leaders. But once again, many of our younger people don't know those stories. Many don't know the battles fought for bilingual education. Many don't know the struggles for political representation. Many don't know how hard previous generations have fought to create opportunities that many of us benefit from today. And a lot of us take for granted. Like literally, like, oh my God, I'm like, every time I think about this, I just so many opportunities have been created by Puerto Ricans, and a lot of our people take it for granted or don't use those opportunities provided for them. History isn't about our past. History is about the foundation of the future. Do I have to say that again, BCs? You know I'm going to. History isn't about the past. History is the foundation of the future. I probably switched that up a little bit. And with that being said, this is why history matters. One of the biggest, well, one of my many biggest frustrations, but one of the biggest frustrations in this conversation is how often, and this doesn't even just go for the younger generations, this goes for some Puerto Rican adults. I only learned about this is because I had an amazing history teacher that taught proper history. But one of my many biggest frustrations, but one of my biggest frustrations with this conversation is how often Puerto Rican contributions are overlooked or erased. And here we go. Everyone knows about Brown versus the Board of Education, and they absolutely should. It is one of the most important civil rights victories in American history, and we should not forget that or allow it to be erased or whitewashed. But many people don't know about the case that helped pave the way 7 years before Brown. There was Mendez versus Westminster. Okay. Yeah, I said it. And I'm going to say it again. 7 years prior to Brown, the case that paved the way for Brown and many civil rights movements or journey, however you want to put it, okay, was the case of Mendez. And if you don't freaking believe me, do your research. I'm giving you the facts, okay? Do your research. And for that, I will be putting, and I'm putting it out there. It is Mendez versus Westminster. And that is Mendez versus Westminster. Westminster. Okay. This was 7 years before Brown. And this case challenged school segregation. Oh my God. I am still tired from this past week. But this case challenged school segregation in California and became one of many major steps forward in the fight of educational equality. And one of the lead plaintiffs was Felicitas Mendez, a Puerto Rican woman married to a Mexican man whose family fought discrimination and helped create the pathway that would later help create the pathway that would later influence Brown versus the Board of Education. Yes, I said it. It was a Puerto Rican woman and her family, which was Puerto Rican Mexican because she married a Mexican man. And it was that family that fought discrimination in California and was done 7 years prior to Brown versus the Board of Education. But we're never taught that. We're only taught certain parts of history. And it was this case that paved the way and influenced Brown versus the Board of Education. And as many don't know, when you do law, you base your findings or your facts on information and laws that were passed prior to you, and you use those in your arguments to plead your case. But now, this is where we gotta go, beasties. Yet, how many people are taught the history of Felicitas Mendez? How many students learn about her contributions? How many textbooks, and I'm excluding law textbooks because I know that case is mentioned in every law textbook. I'm talking about history books. I'm talking about middle school, high school, elementary school. How many of those textbooks mention her name? It's not enough. And if I exclude law books, probably not at all. And that's exactly what the problem is, beasties. Puerto Rican history has often been ignored, minimized, or excluded from the larger American story. Meanwhile, Puerto Rican history is a major part of American story down to we could go back. We could go back so many years. Many people don't know about the Borinqueños or, you know, the Spanish American War. It goes back so far. Like, even like sitting here, there's so much that I can overload you that this podcast will be for hours if I just go throughout the list of how many Puerto Ricans or how much Puerto Ricans were a part of American history and that it's not included. This show could go on for hours. And when history isn't taught, and I say it all the time, beasties, when it isn't taught properly, people assume it never happens. Or when it isn't taught at all, they assume it never happens. And when that happens, communities become invisible. Puerto Ricans have been opening doors for generations. Puerto Ricans have opened doors not only for ourselves, but for countless others. We have fought for civil rights. We have fought for educational opportunities. We have fought for representation. We still fight for proper representation. We fought for labor rights, and that means working, not anything else if you're thinking any. I'm talking about working, workers. We fought for language access. And most of all, we fought for equality. And the victories achieved by many Puerto Rican leaders, activists, attorneys, judges, education or educators, community advocates, senators, Congress, you name it, I could go down the line, have been benefited by many and taken it for granted by our own people. And many have benefited people from every background, especially Hispanic backgrounds. If it wasn't for Puerto Ricans, immigrants of Hispanic descent would probably still be going through many challenges than they are going through today. They would have never been seen if it wasn't for Puerto Ricans. Just like when Hispanic cultures come together and not go against each other, we could accomplish so much. That I know I'm stepping off topic because this is about Puerto Rican culture, but I have to put this out there. If the Puerto Ricans came together with the Dominicans, the Cubans, the Mexicans, South Americans, every Hispanic culture, we will be a driving force that is unstoppable. But too often, we are either put against each other or it's some other issue that has been created. And it sucks. But with that being said, going back on topic, once again, the victories achieved by Puerto Rican leaders, activists, attorneys, educators, and community advocates and politicians and judges have benefited people from every background. That history deserves to be celebrated. That history deserves to be preserved. That history deserves to be taught. Puerto Ricans have opened doors, but the problem isn't just that our history isn't being taught in classrooms. The problem is that every industry we've helped build, Puerto Rican or Puerto Ricans' contributions are often erased, minimized, or forgotten. The pioneers that they forgot to credit, and I know this issue has come up from time to time, but it's an issue I'm going to talk about it because it's a part of my history. It's my family, and I'm not doing it because it's my family, but I'm doing this because it's who we are as a people and how that one person brought so much pride to our island and took our talent, our culture with him around the world. And I'm going to say it, another issue we don't talk about enough is how often Puerto Rican pioneers are excluded from conversations about the very industries that they helped build. And I'm talking about hip hop. Today's we celebrate legendary DJs, radio personalities, producers, artists who have shaped music and culture. Names like DJ Enough, DJ Camilo, DJ Tony Touch, the Mendez brothers, even though they're not Puerto Rican. I can't tell. And Camilo's not Puerto Rican. But with that being said, a lot of Alex Sensation, a lot of Puerto Rican or Hispanic DJs would not be in the position that they're in if DJ Charlie Chase wasn't the pioneer that he was. Long before hip hop became a billion-dollar global industry, DJ Charlie Chase was, I'm not even saying, was. He helped build the culture from the ground up, and he did it as being a member of the legendary Cold Crush Brothers. At a time when Latinos and Puerto Ricans were often overlooked in the hip hop history or industry in general, he was proving that Puerto Ricans were not just the participants, they were the architects. They were one of the many architects of hip hop. The truth is, Puerto Ricans were there from the very beginning. We weren't just guests in hip hop, we helped create it. and my primo helped create it. And I say that with much pride. And it upsets me, not because he's my cousin, but it upsets me as a Puerto Rican to see that he is not given the credit he deserves. From the Bronx to Brooklyn, Puerto Rican DJs, b-boys, graffiti artists, promoters, dancers, and MCs helped shape what became one of the most influential cultural movements in the world and still is. I wish it was what it was because I'm not a big fan of the mumble rap and all that stuff, but we're not gonna get into that beasties. And I don't know what happened to the fashion. That's not hip hop. It's kind of traumatizing. But with that being said, yeah, it's very traumatizing. But with that being said, when hip hop history is told, Puerto Rican contributions are often treated as a footnote instead of the chapter that they deserve. And I could tell you, for an easy A, I took history of hip hop. It's a footnote, maybe half a chapter. It's not enough. Not even a chapter, a couple of pages. It's not enough. We deserve more. We were architects involved in it. And, this is the biggest example I could give that people can actually understand. But this same thing happens in politics, it happens in education, it happens in civil rights, it happens in the entertainment industry, it happens in law. We celebrate the success stories, but forgot the people who opened the doors for us. And that's exactly why preserving our history matters. Because, come on, beasties, if we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell them for us, or worse, tell it incorrectly, like we're constantly seeing on social media, or they'll just leave us out of it. Yeah, they will leave us out of it entirely. Puerto Ricans have always been pioneers. They've always been innovators. They've always been builders. The problem is we no, I need to word that better. The problem the problem let's see, how can I word this, beasties? The problem isn't that we haven't contributed. The problem is that too often we haven't received the credit we earned. I'm going to say that again. The problem isn't we haven't contributed. The problem is that too often we haven't received the credit we earn. Hip hop wasn't something Puerto Ricans joined. Hip hop was something Puerto Ricans helped build. And it's time that history mm, recognizes it. That history needs to get recognized, and we should be speaking up how it deserves its recognition. And with that being said, this conversation is an even more conversation. If it wasn't for people like Ricky Martin, Bad Bunny, Calle 13, Tengo Carrerón, many of our younger generations might know even less about Puerto Rico than they do today. And whether you are a fan or not, Bad Bunny has used his platform properly and still continues to use his platform properly by bringing attention to Puerto Rico, the cultural identity, recovery efforts, the displacement, and the issues affecting La Isla, the island. You know, after Hurricane Maria, people across the world began paying attention. But Puerto Rico has been suffering way before Hurricane Maria. Okay. But unfortunately, after Hurricane Maria, people across the world began paying attention to Puerto Rico in ways they hadn't before. Artists, activists, community leaders, politicians, and everyday Puerto Ricans, well, certain ones, genuine ones, everyday genuine Puerto Ricans use their voices to remind the world that Puerto Rico exists, that our people matter, and that our struggles deserve attention. Culture survives when stories are told. Culture survives when people speak up. And culture survives when people refuse to be forgotten. Once again, culture survives when people tell stories. Culture survives when people speak up. And culture survives when people refuse to be forgotten. When culture becomes content, how can I say this nice? I'm trying to be nice. I really am. But this is where things might become very complicated. After Hurricane Maria and with the rise of social media, being Puerto Rican suddenly became profitable. Something I never thought would ever happen because to me, being Puerto Rican is magical. It's special. It's spiritual. It holds me on to people I love, to a happy place for me, a place where I need to escape and I need to go back and touch the sand or dive in the ocean or walk the footsteps that my ancestors once took. So when I speak about my culture and my people or I advocate, I don't do it because I'm expecting a profit off of it. I do it because I want to be heard. I want my people's struggles to be seen. I want people to see the beauty and how we have to protect La Isla and everything with it. They shouldn't be knocking down El Yunque. They shouldn't have to pay to go to El Yunque. They shouldn't be taking away what is rightfully deserved, not only to me, to my children, and to the people of the island. That is our history. That is our everything. That island is sacred. So, with the rise of social media, being Puerto Rican, and I'm not gonna say some of the content I love. Some people do it because it's nostalgia and, they continue to do it because they profited off of it. But when you ask those content creators to speak up, they do speak up. They don't give an excuse, "I can't speak up," or "I have no comment." You know, everyone wanted Puerto Rican content, and we love it. We do. It's nostalgic every time we see a chancleta throne, and it shows how we relate to other Hispanic cultures or the differences amongst Dominican and Puerto Rican cultures or Puerto Rican and Mexican cultures or Puerto Rican and Cuban cultures and so on and so forth. But everyone wanted Puerto Rican content, Puerto Rican branding, Puerto Rican aesthetics, Puerto Rican engagement, Puerto Rican followers, Puerto Rican trends. And like I said before, while many creators genuinely wanted to educate and preserve our culture, others saw it as an opportunity. You gotta fucking love those opportunists. Some people, they wave the flag, they put it all over their costumes, they'll dance, they'll say words, they'll yell expressions. I don't even know what to call them in English. You know, they'll say chants, but they never advocate for the people. I said it. Some people wave the flag, but they never advocate for the people. Some people profit from Puerto Rico pride, but they never speak about Puerto Rican struggles or take some of those profits and give back to Puerto Rican communities, to the isla, or funding something to help preserve something. You could use those profits to help. Some people have built entire platforms about being Puerto Rican. I'm talking about groups, membership shit, um, their platforms, content, uh, gaming, cosplay, music, production. I could go on with the list of shit. They have built entire platforms around being Puerto Rican. Fashion. Oh, I forgot fashion. Like I said, it's a whole bunch of shit. But they have built entire platforms around being Puerto Rican, yet never discuss the challenges facing our communities here in the United States and on the island or in the dysphoria. I said it. Some people have built entire platforms around being Puerto Rican, yet never discussed the challenges facing our communities here in the States or on the island or in the dysphoria. Culture has become content, heritage has become branding, identity became marketing. And that should make us very uncomfortable. Ay, Dios mío, bro. Because our culture is not a costume. Our culture is not a trend. Our culture is not a business strategy. And our culture is our history. Our culture is our ancestors. Our culture is our responsibility. And I'm going to say it again. Our culture is not a trend. It is not a business strategy, and it is not anything else. Okay? I can't, like, I it is not a costume, it is not a trend, it is not a business strategy. Our culture is our history. Our culture is our ancestors, and our culture is our responsibility. And that means representation means responsibility. Representation means responsibility. So if you're proudly going to wave the Puerto Rican flag, stick it on an article of clothing, put it on a cosplay, or create a business out of it, then I'm really, really trying to be nice with this because I want this to be for younger generations to read. And I know me, I can't do 18 below. If you're not 18 and older, you cannot be watching The Poisonous Daily, point blank. And I'm sorry, but this this I'm trying so hard because I want younger children to see this, but once again, it's going to happen because this is so frustrating and this is so personal and it hurts so much. But if you're going to probably wave the Puerto Rican flag, put it on clothing, put it on a costume, create a business out of it or base your platform on it, then you damn sure better be willing to stand up for the Puerto Rican people and for La Isla. If you're going to profit off of the Puerto Rican culture, then you should be advocating for Puerto Rican communities here in the United States and in Puerto Rico or anywhere else. If you're going to represent Puerto Rico, then help educate others properly with proper information because there's a few content creators out there. My husband watched one of them, and do you know how many times I go off and I tell him to shut that shit off because it's improper information? And that goes with anything. Anytime I hear anything with improper information or misinterpretation, I make it clear, turn that shit off. That shit, I don't want to hear it. Okay? So if you're going to represent Puerto Rico, then help educate others properly and help them learn and educate them properly about Puerto Rican history. Representation is more than visibility. Okay? Representation is responsibility. Once you become a representative of anything. And this even goes in professional fields, in any career, in any culture, in anything. Representation is responsibility. You are representing not only yourself, but you are representing your community, your state, your country, your culture, your heritage, your ancestors. It is a part of you. And it is your responsibility to be a proper representation, not only of yourself, but everything else. Every day, there are so many attorneys, judges, elected officials, educators, activists, and organizers fighting to preserve Puerto Rican heritage. And I see it every day. I'm a part of it. I do this day to day, every day. It is a part of my career. And now I'm speaking up because once again, if I'm here telling you every week to be your true selves and to have those tough conversations, that means I need to have those tough conversations. So, like I was saying, every day there are attorneys, judges, elected officials, educators, activists, and organizers fighting to preserve Puerto Rican heritage. They are activating, they are activating. They are advocating for our communities. They are advocating for our youth. They are advocating for our culture and they are advocating for our futures. Those are the people we should be celebrating. Those are the people we should be recognizing, not a person because they got over 1,000,000 followers or they created something or they made some type of platform and they're putting information out there. And sometimes it's not even the freaking proper information. But are those people getting celebrated or being seen for who they are and all that they're doing? No. The people that are doing the work are not getting their recognition. Think about it, beasties. And with that being said, a lot of those Puerto Ricans, especially myself, have spent generations fighting stereotypes. We have been stereotyped in politics. Yeah, I said it. Puerto Ricans have spent generations fighting stereotypes. We have been stereotyped in politics. We have been stereotyped in education. We have been stereotyped in entertainment. We have been stereotyped in media. We have been stereotyped in every and any little thing. But every day, there is a Puerto Rican in the world that continues to prove that those stereotypes are wrong. I'm not an attorney yet. I'm on my process. So I'm just saying this for the Puerto Rican people. Puerto Ricans are attorneys, we're judges, we're doctors, we're educators, we're entrepreneurs, we're artists, we're military veterans, we're activists, we're public servants, we are leaders. And the next generation deserves to see that reality. They deserve to see the people who are representing them every day, their heritage, their ancestors, their culture, but they're not. They only see what's on social media. And they're not because half of the stuff on social media are the stereotypes, are curated, are limited versions of who we really are. Okay? The next generation deserves to see the reality of who we are and how far we come and the things we have become and the accomplishments we have made, not the stereotypes, not the satire, not the limited version of who we are. They need to see the full picture. Okay? The full picture. Finally, with that being said, beasties, the DPG challenge is to every Puerto Rican listening. Learn your history, the proper history. Talk to your grandparents. I learned a lot of my identity and history by talking to my grandparents, by learning from my elders. Talk to your parents. Record their stories. Learn about the island. Learn about the migration. Like, seriously. Talk to your grandparents. Talk to your parents. Record their stories. Especially now, you could do it digitally. You don't even have to write it. Learn about the island, the proper information by getting proper access to correct literature, to correct resources. Learn about the migration to New York. Learn about the activists. Learn about the court cases. Learn about the victories and the sacrifices that built the opportunities that we have today as a people. And if you're proudly waving that Puerto Rican flag, make damn sure you're doing more than showing pride. And you saw my voice, my tone, it changed, it went higher because I'm tired of seeing it. And if I have to go to you in person and tell you about it, I'm not scared to do it anymore because the hypocrisy has to stop. We should be doing more for our people and for our community. And honestly, that also goes for any community we live in. But right now, my conversation is about the Puerto Rican people and the Puerto Rican community. So if you're proudly waving that Puerto Rican flag, make damn sure you're doing more than showing your pride. Be an advocate, be a voice, be a representative of your community. Use your platform properly. Oh my god, I'm so tongue-tied. I need like 2 weeks of sleep after this past weekend. Use your platform properly, okay? Use your platform to educate. Use your platform to preserve. Use your platform to make sure future generations know exactly who they are and where they came from. Because culture doesn't disappear overnight, it's a process. It disappears one forgetting a story at a time, one forgetting those stories at a time, or those stories being improperly told. And if we truly, truly love our heritage, okay? If we really, truly, genuinely love our heritage the way you're depicting it on social media or on your platforms, preserving it is not optional. It is our responsibility as people de Puerto Rico. It is our responsibility as New York Ricans. It is our responsibility as children of ancestors and survivors of many of our ancestors to tell their story and to tell their story properly. And that we need to celebrate our heroes, our true heroes, and have them represented properly. And that we celebrate their victories and the sacrifices that they made that a lot of our people, and it's sad to say this, take for granted. Once again, if we truly love our heritage, preserving it isn't optional, it's our responsibility. Stay unfiltered, stay chaotic, stay empowering. And as always, BCs, keep questioning everything. And once again, being Puerto Rican isn't something you inherit, it's something you preserve. Every story you learn, every elder you listen to, every truth you teach, and every door you hold open for the next generation keeps our culture alive. The question isn't whether we're proud to be Puerto Rican. The question is, what are we doing to make sure the next generation knows why they should be? I'm going to say it again because obviously sometimes BCs I have to teach teach or treat you mostly like my kids. I'm going to repeat it. Being Puerto Rican isn't something you inherit. It is something you preserve. Every story you learn, every elder you listen to, every truth you teach, and every door you hope. I'm gonna cry because this is really it's emotional. This this is serious. Like serious species. This is very serious. Being Puerto Rican isn't something you inherit, like I said before. It is something you preserve. Every story you learn, every elder you listen to, every truth you teach, and every door you hold open for the next generation keeps our culture alive, our cultura, who we are. So, this isn't a question whether we're proud to be Puerto Rican. The question is, what are we doing to make sure the next generation knows why they should be? Until next time, beasties, I'll see you soon.